Good morning, geometry, and today we are going to continue our review of how to write equations of lines. Now, I want to point out to you these three important formulas up here. You will have access to these formulas whenever you need them. However, you need to know how to use them. So remember, slope of a line, we can find this. It's represented by m, and we need two different points. We plug in our y and our x values, and we can find what the slope of that line is. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. You're probably most familiar with this formula. It's very common. You've seen it before in algebra, even in pre-algebra. But keep in mind, that's our end goal. That is the one we can graph from, which is why it's valuable. However, sometimes we don't have both the slope and the intercept. We're given a point and a slope. So then we have to use this last formula. Okay, we plug in a point and then the slope, and we can manipulate this so that it looks like the slope-intercept form. So on question 1 here, it says, write an equation of a line going through the point 2, 3 with a slope of 1/2. Okay, so just like we did yesterday, we need to first identify which comes first, our x or our y. And hopefully you remember in an ordered pair, it goes x first and then y. So that's our x1, that's our y1, and this slope is m. Okay, now we're going to plug into this equation. We have a point and the slope, so we're going to use the point-slope formula there. So we're going to do y minus 3. I took the y1 right here. Okay, equals, we plug in our m, so 1/2 parentheses x minus 2. I plug in that x1 value. Now we have to distribute the half in. Okay, we're going to rewrite y minus 3 stays the same, equals 1/2 x, and hopefully you know half of -2. It's going to break down to -1. Okay, if you weren't sure about that, you could have done 1/2 times -2 over 1. That'd give us -2 over 2, which is going to break down to -1. Okay, from here we have one move left. We got to add 3 to both sides, add 3, and we're left with y equals 1/2 x plus 2. Okay, that would be our final answer for that one. And once again, this is what we did yesterday. So if you're having trouble with that, you can look at yesterday's video for some more review problems. Okay. Now, the second type we talked about yesterday at the end, what do we do if we are not given the slope? Instead, we have 2 points. So on this problem, we are asked to find an equation of a line that goes through these 2 points, -2, 1 and 0, -2. Okay, so first we need to decide which one is x1, y1 and which one is x2, y2. Doesn't really matter. Remember, x comes first, so x1, y1, and then that will make this x2, y2. Now the second thing we need to do after labeling our points is find our slope. So we're going to use this formula right here. And we'll take m to equal. Now we'll plug these in. So y2 minus y1. Right here we'll take -2 minus 1. All over, then it's x2 minus x1. So 0 minus -2. Probably the most common mistakes were mistakes made with negatives yesterday. So let's be very careful. -2 minus 1 here. That's going to give us -3 on top. Okay. And now 0 minus a negative. Minus minus is the same. That means the same as 0 plus 2. Minus minus is the same as a plus sign. Okay, so we get a 2 on the bottom. So -3 over 2, that is going to be our equation. Now, it's up to you on which one you choose to use. However, as I pointed out yesterday, I think the point that we want to plug in is anytime there's a 0, let's use that point. It's probably going to be easier because a 0 kind of cancels out, takes care of itself. So we'll plug in. Now we have the slope here, m equals -3 over 2. We can use either point. We're going to choose the second point. We're going to plug it in. We have a point and slope, so we're going to plug it into that equation. So let me change colors to blue. So we'll go y minus y1. Now in this case, we chose this point, so we're actually going to use y minus y2, but minus a -2, okay, equals. Now our slope we found was -3 over 2, and then we do parentheses x minus 0. Okay. Minus minus here will result in y plus 2 equals negative 3 over 2 times x. Keep in mind we're going to distribute that in. Negative 3 over 2 times negative 0. That's going to be easy because anything times 0 gives us 0. So if you want, you can put plus 0. You don't have to put that. You can also put minus 0, or you can just leave it off. Now we've got one final step. We need to subtract this 2 over minus 2, and our final answer will be y equals negative 3 over 2x minus 2. Okay? So the reason we've been learning this, we've been talking about parallel lines and writing equations. Now, if we look here, we have two parallel lines. Hopefully you remember that means they run beside each other, they never touch. And slope of these parallel lines, let's look at the first one. And this first top line, if we start here, it goes up 1 over 2. So the slope of this first line would be 1 over 2. Now, the slope of our second line, if we start here, goes up 1 over 2. Now, once again, slope is 1/2. Anytime, you'll notice they are the same. Anytime you have parallel lines, you have the same slope. So parallel lines always have the same slope. That is the big takeaway from today's lesson. Another takeaway might be that I am struggling to write words on this, but the one I was hoping you would take away is parallel lines have the same slope. In order for them to be parallel, that means they have to have the same slope. So now that we know that, let's combine yesterday's work with what we've talked about today. If parallel lines have the same slope, let's look at, I went too far, example 3 here. So once again, we have our formulas. It says write the equation of a line that passes through 2, 0 and is parallel to the line y equals 2x minus 1. If it's parallel, we know it has the same slope. So what we need to do is first establish what is the slope of this line. Hopefully you remember from the formula y equals mx plus b. We're looking for the m, or what's right in front of the x. So right here is our m. So our m is 2, and if it is parallel, that means it's the same. So the slope has to be 2. Now it tells us it passes through this point. So once again, let's label that's our x1 and our y1. We're going to plug it into this formula because at this point we have a point right here and we have a slope because it's parallel. Remember, I keep emphasizing this, but if they're parallel, that means they have to have the same slope. So we're going to plug in all these points now to the point slope form. So y minus, now this one had a 0, so y minus 0 equals, our slope is 2, parentheses x minus x1 right here was 2. Okay, so at this point, y minus 0 just becomes y. We have to distribute here. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 2 becomes negative 4. And we are done because the y is isolated. Okay, so one more example. We're going to do one more just like that. We'll go here on the fourth one. And once again, we said we are writing an equation of a line that passes through this point, okay, and it's parallel. Keyword parallel. If it's parallel, I've said it probably 4 times, maybe more in this video. If it's parallel, it has the same slope. It has to be exactly the same. So we look right here, and once again, using y equals mx plus b, we know that this number right in front of the x there, that is our m. So our slope equals 4. And because it's parallel, we know if we are writing an equation of a line that is parallel, it will also have a slope of 4. Now 2 is our x1, 1 is our y1. So now let's go ahead and plug it in. We have a point right here. We have a slope over here. So point slope. That's what it's named for. That's perfect. Now we can plug it in and then isolate it so that it looks like slope intercept form. Okay, so let's do y minus, right here, y minus y1. Our y1 is 1. If you're not sure where I'm getting that from, right here. This point, whatever we have, okay, that's what we plug in. Now, our slope, it's parallel, so we know it's the same, so we put the 4 in. Put your parentheses, x minus, okay, at this point we're right here, x minus x1. Our x1 right here was 2. So y minus 1 equals 4 times the parentheses x minus 2. Now, we're just about done. We need to start by distributing here. So y minus 1, I'll keep that, equals 4x, because 4 times x, and then 4 times negative 2 would be minus 8. Okay, one more step. We got to get y by itself so that it's here in slope-intercept form. So we're going to add 1 to both sides, add 1, and we're left with y equals, the 4x won't change, negative 8 plus 1. Be careful with your negatives. It's going to be negative 7. If you need help on that, you can use a calculator. Go to Google, type negative 8 plus 1. It'll help you out. Okay, so just to double check, we look what is the slope of this line, and right here the slope is 4. That's good because as we saw before, it was parallel. So if it's parallel, we know they have the same slope. So a slope of 4 right here, slope of 4 right here. We have found a parallel line, and since we have plugged in this point, we also know it will go through that point. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Let me know. Go ahead and make sure you give today's assignment a try. Just keep practicing this, and I hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.